Hi, I'm Tom Stevenson and welcome to Tools, Techniques, and Mental Models. Today we're going to be talking about Parkinson's Law. Parkinson's Law is a great project management technique or tool that you can use to improve your project management abilities and capabilities. It was developed by Cyril Northcote Parkinson in the 1950s. He wrote an article for The Economist magazine, and he was a British civil servant. Now, one of the things that we find with time, and he observed this, is that work expands so as to fill the time available for its completion. We're all concerned about time and how long things take for us to be able to complete them. And his observation was that, if you give somebody a week to do something, it'll take them at least a week. If you give them 3 days to do the same task, it'll take them at least 3 days to complete. So he felt there was like a psychological connection there with the time period that people were given for tasks and activities and how long it actually took them. And so when you think about that, that has a dramatic effect on project management. When we think about critical path and how we develop a schedule, we develop the schedule based on the network of activities and how they connect to each other. The longest path through the network is known as the critical path. The activities that have a little bit of flexibility, they're non-critical, so they have float. And we allocate time frames for each activity. We figure out how many days is this activity going to take? How many days is this activity going to take? And very often too, when we give durations to develop a schedule, we often give a little bit more than we think is necessary. So, we think something's going to take 5 days. Well, you know what? I'm going to allow 7 days for that. And using Parkinson's Law in that example, well, if you think it's going to take 5 days, but you give 7 days to do it, it's likely it's going to take 7 days, especially when the doer knows they have 7 days to complete it. So they often start on the latest start date that they can, and then they'll finish on the late finish date for the activity, which we develop when we do a forward pass and a backward pass and calculating the critical path. So when you think about that, if you've got a task that needs to be done and you give it to your plumbing subcontractor and they have been allocated 10 days to do it, but it should only take them 7, it's probably going to take them at least 10 days because they're going to start 3 days into it and then the 7 days will take them up to the completion date. That would be all well and good, but the other problem that occurs is very often then during that 7 days, something happens that prevents them from finishing it on the 10th day. So that extra 3-day buffer that you gave them in that case, it's not going to have the intended result. Not only that, you've done that then to a whole bunch of activities throughout your schedule, and it's really inflated the overall project schedule, and then people end up taking that time and you still have difficulty because of the ones that actually end up taking longer on those activities. So it's really kind of a negative kind of psychological thing we do to ourselves in project management when we pad activities and expect, well, we've given a little bit of leeway, so they should have plenty of time to get it done. And that's counterintuitive very often to how people think. And when we've talked about SMART goals in previous sessions, and SMART goals stands for being specific about what it is you're trying to accomplish, making sure it's measurable, making sure you believe you can do it, it's attainable, making sure from whoever's doing its perspective, you have confidence that they can do it, it's realistic, it's resource-based, that's the R. And the T is for time, right? And it's got to be time-bound. So we do want to make sure that if we want to achieve a goal, it's time-bound. But giving more time than necessary often makes it not so. Means that, as I said, people start on their late start and late finish dates. So how can we use Parkinson's Law to our advantage then? And, one of the points that comes up was brought up by Eli Goldratt, and he basically developed the theory of constraints and critical chain theory. We'll cover that in other videos, but he had this name that he called student syndrome, and I use it all the time with my students, right? A student will look at an assignment that you give them typically, and I have my students do business plans. That's probably the biggest kind of project that they do, and I'll usually give it at the beginning of the semester, and they look at that and they, oh, our group, we can do that probably in 2 weeks, or some of them are more ambitious and they'll say 7 days. And what happens is the 7 days, they started on the latest start date. So they don't do anything all semester, and then they get into it like, we'll just push through this the last 7 days. But then something happens, something comes up, somebody gets sick, some family emergency. And usually on the evening that it's due, I can sort of predict that I'm going to get a few emails that show, I can't get it done. Can we have an extension? And that's what we call student syndrome. You know what? If we're going to be honest about this, we all fall into this trap. I've fallen into this trap many times. At least I'm cognizant about it, and I try to avoid it wherever possible. But that's something to be very, very clear on and understand the psychology behind that. And then the consequences. Usually you're rushing it to try to get it done, and you don't have enough time allocated. It's also what I'll cover in another video when I talk about buffers and allocating buffers. I just completed one on Microsoft Project, how to show buffers and how I would indicate it on a schedule. But I'll do a separate video on buffers themselves and how to better handle those. And this ties in directly with Parkinson's Law. So one of the recommendations would be, if you're a tradesperson, for example, coming from a trade background myself, I always remember that I would give myself mini goals during the day. And it might be that if you're hanging a door, as an example, and you're going to install this door, and you're starting at 8 o'clock in the morning, you might frame it up in your mind that I want to have these two doors hung and swinging within 2 hours, let's say. And so you give yourself that time frame, and you work diligently and you focus diligently, and you don't let other things interrupt you during that time period. And then lo and behold, comes around 9:30, quarter to 10, you're just pushing to get that last bit done, and then you hit it for 10 o'clock. Now, if I looked at that and said, oh, it's going to take till 10, but I'll give myself till 11. You know what? It's going to take you till 11 o'clock to do it, because you'll let things interrupt you. You'll get sidetracked. You won't be as focused on it. You won't get into flow, and that will slow you down. So for people that tend to get a lot of things done, if you watch them, they get pretty intent and pretty focused, and they time bound what they're trying to do, and they set these little mini goals and they work towards them. And I'm saying you give yourself a very realistic, tight mini goal, and you focus on it. Not something that you're going to rush to do a sloppy job, not something that you're going to rush to do an unsafe job, but something that is very accomplishable if you focus and you don't let interruptions get to you, and you're not checking your cell phone every 2 minutes, etc. And that is something that is really hard to do today, is to be able to focus for a period of time on something. And what this is doing, applying Parkinson's Law and using it to your advantage, is helping you to build focus skills that you can hone in, and then you can accomplish these mini goals, and then you feel good about those accomplishments, and that gives you more fuel to do more and get more accomplished. It's also highlighting that you're focusing on something that you feel is important to get done, so you're doing what's essential and you're leaving what's not essential to another time, where you maybe again could condense it down. I'm going to give myself 20 minutes to review emails, and that's what I'm going to do. Not that it ends up taking you an hour and a half to go through those emails, because you enter it with a different perspective of what you've allocated, and you focus in on doing it in that time frame. I noticed this myself with marking students' papers. I have these same business plans that I mentioned to you. It used to bother me. It used to take me so long to mark those papers. Well, actually, what I used to do was I get on the subway in the morning, and I knew the subway ride was about 45 minutes. And I would say, for example, I would put down that I'm going to mark 5 papers in that, let's say it's 50 minutes, 5 papers in that 50 minutes. So what I'm doing is I'm giving myself 10 minutes per paper. And that means I'm going to focus for that. I really focus in hard for that 10 minutes so that I've gone through their paper and I've been able to put notes, and that's it. And then I go on to the next one. And sometimes if I get a little bit behind, it took 11, I'm really focusing. So the next one takes 9, it gets me back on track. It's got these mini goals. I would do that going, and I would do that coming home. And in about 3 days, I would have all the business plans marked, and it really was not such an onerous chore for me. And because I limited the amount of time that I was focused, that kind of thing where you really got to sort of focus in heavily on it, that's helpful too, because then you need a break. And the break was, well, I got to my stop and then I'd walk to wherever I need to go. This actually ties a little bit to the Pomodoro timer, where you focus in on something for like 25 or 30 minutes, give yourself a 5 or 10 minute break, and then you go back, heavy focus, and you try to get that whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish done in that period of time. There's a lot of little psychology tricks that can be played when you are dealing with projects and when you're dealing with goals and you're dealing with time management that can really work to your benefit. And for sure, you've got to also understand, if you're padding your activities in a construction project and you're telling that plumbing trade you've got 10 days to do it, when really they should only take 7 days, then they're going to take that 10 days. It's going to end up, something's going to interrupt. Oh, I got plenty of time. I'll take this day in the middle and we'll go do that other project that we're doing. And then something happens and they end up still being late with it. And that's kind of defeating your whole purpose. Better to have, and we'll talk about this in another video that I'll do, but better to have urgent time periods that really require focus to accomplish, but you can accomplish them, right? They're not unrealistic. That's tying to the SMART goal aspect. And having a buffer later on that can catch oddball things, unknown things that happen. And that's an effective way to use Parkinson's Law to your advantage. We do a lot of complicated things in construction. Our buildings are complicated. We have a lot of resources that we pull together for a project, materials, people, equipment, and trying to orchestrate and organize all that is not the easiest thing to do. So if you want something done, you want to give it to a busy person. If there are no deadlines, then it will not get done. Having a bit of a sense of urgency on that will help to motivate and engage people in what they're trying to accomplish. And using Parkinson's Law in the right way can help us build constraints into our work that actually engages the people doing the work and has a stronger likelihood that we will be able to come in on our targets for time, cost, quality, scope, and safety when we talk about construction projects, when we handle it the right way. So Parkinson's Law, it's another tool, and I hope it's helpful for you. I hope this video helped you and gave you some ideas for managing your projects. If you enjoyed this video, please click the subscribe button. You'll see on the various playlists on my YouTube channel, there's lots of different construction related videos at play. And come join the community. Please leave comments if you've tried something similar to this and experienced positive outcomes or had some challenges. Leave us a comment and we'll make it a discussion point. So I'm Tom Stevenson, wishing you a wonderful day, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.